Welcome to the Explainer. Let's just jump right in and remove the guesswork for any San Diego homeowner out there who is currently stressing over a malfunctioning dishwasher. Look, if you've got a kitchen piled high with dirty dishes and a machine that's just acting up, you are suddenly standing at a super frustrating fork in the road. Do you call for a repair, or do you bite the bullet and start shopping for a completely new unit? It's an incredibly common dilemma. But the good news? You absolutely do not need to make this decision based on a gut feeling or a coin flip. Today, we are walking through a totally clear, specific, no-fluff guide built straight from the insights of Repair Pro San Diego.
So is your dishwasher actually worth fixing? Honestly, that is the ultimate question here. And rather than relying on guesswork or those generic one-size-fits-all online calculators, we're going to use a concrete diagnostic funnel to figure out exactly what your next step should be. This entire explainer is about empowering you with practical, specific data. We want to make sure you don't end up wasting your hard-earned money on a doomed machine, or, on the flip side, prematurely trashing a perfectly good unit that just needs a really minor tweak.
The absolute most crucial point to understand is that every single repair or replace decision comes down to these three foundational pillars: age, symptoms, and history. We absolutely have to get these facts straight before you spend a dime. Seriously, these three things tell you vastly more about your machine's future than anything else possibly could. So we're going to break down each of these pillars right now so you can evaluate your own appliance exactly like a professional technician would.
Let's kick things off with pillar number 1, age, 9 to 12. That number represents the typical lifespan, in years, of a dishwasher before the major components start failing sequentially, rather than just one at a time. Now sure, this can vary slightly depending on the brand or just how heavily your household runs the thing. And hey, if you don't know the exact age of your unit right off the top of your head, don't panic. You can almost always find the model and serial label tucked just inside the door frame, or simply check your original purchase receipt. The big takeaway here is that if your dishwasher is still safely inside this 9 to 12-year window, a single part failure is usually exactly that, just a single failure. It is not necessarily a death sentence for your appliance.
Well, that brings us to our second pillar, symptoms. How those symptoms actually start matters immensely. A slow decline points to a physical part gradually wearing out, while a sudden stop usually means a single component just failed outright. So before you even think about picking up the phone to call a technician, you need to write down exactly what's happening. Think about it. Is it a slow decline, where your dishes have been getting progressively less clean over the last few months? Or was it a sudden stop, where everything was running flawlessly on Tuesday and then completely dead on Wednesday? A slow decline is a massive, massive clue for whoever diagnoses your machine that something is physically wearing down. But a sudden complete stop, that often means a specific electronic or mechanical part literally just gave up the ghost in an instant.
So if your machine is under 10 years old, a sudden stop is usually just a single part failure. We're talking about things like a drain pump, a heating element, a door latch, or a control board. These are the specific components a technician ends up replacing most often. And honestly, the beauty of these specific failures is that they are highly targetable. A technician can easily swap out a faulty door latch or a busted drain pump without having to tear the entire chassis of your dishwasher apart. Because of that, for a unit under a decade old, these isolated problems definitely, strongly favor a simple repair.
But hold on, before we go blaming a broken part, we really need to watch out for what we call ghost problems. This is especially true with San Diego's notoriously hard water. A ghost problem is where poor cleaning just mimics a dying machine, but in reality, it only requires a quick filter clean or a simple descaling cycle. If your dishwasher runs a full cycle but keeps leaving your dishes cloudy, greasy, or still covered in food, it might just be a clogged bottom filter or maybe a blocked spray arm. Or it could just be that mineral scale has heavily built up inside the unit. These issues might act like fatal flaws, but they cost absolutely nothing more than a basic cleaning to rule out. Honestly, go pull that bottom filter and check it before you assume the worst.
Now, when it comes to leaks, there is a stark contrast between a simple, targeted fix and a full-blown mystery leak. Leaks can be totally terrifying for sure, but they are not all created equal. If the water is coming from one clearly identifiable spot, like a worn-out door seal you can clearly see or a loose supply line fitting, that is a highly targeted, totally standard fix. It absolutely does not mean your dishwasher is done for. On the flip side, though, if water is just quietly pooling from the base and there is zero obvious source, that is a mystery leak. And mystery leaks are incredibly difficult to isolate. They often hide a cracked tub or a failing pump seal and usually require major disassembly just to diagnose.
Fatal flaws. When to replace. Okay, we've talked about what is easily fixable, but now we really need to talk about the red flags that strongly indicate your appliance has actually reached the end of the line.
There are 3 major replacement red flags to look out for. First, if a technician has to do extensive, invasive disassembly just to find one of those mystery leaks, the diagnostic labor alone can completely outweigh the value of the repair itself. Second, a cracked or heavily corroded tub. That is basically a fatal frame issue. The core structure of the machine is totally compromised, which makes it an automatic replacement scenario, no questions asked. And finally, if your control board fails on an older model and the part is officially discontinued, your hands are completely tied, parts availability is actively working against you. In all 3 of these scenarios, the labor and parts math shifts extremely heavily toward just tossing it and replacing the unit entirely.
And that naturally brings us to Pillar 3, history. You always need to watch out for a pattern of failure. Remember that components installed together at the factory tend to wear out together, so a second totally unrelated problem on a 12-year-old machine strongly means the next part will likely fail within just months. You want to watch for a pattern, rather than a single isolated event. Having one repair on a 12-year-old machine, that's perfectly normal. But if you suddenly need 2 or 3 totally separate, completely unrelated repairs within a 12-month window, that is the machine loudly signaling to you that the components have collectively reached the end of their design life. Regardless of what the individual parts cost to fix today, that pattern dictates you'll be calling the technician again very, very soon.
Okay, a very quick, extremely urgent note right here. If you ever trip a breaker when turning the machine on, if you smell a hot, electrical burning scent, if you hear harsh mechanical grinding, or if you see standing water actively pooling under the unit, stop. Do not run it again. These specific symptoms require a same-day look from a professional. This is absolutely not a wait-and-see approach, and these are not simple maintenance issues you can just tinker with on a Sunday afternoon. They present immediate risks to your home, and you need to get a qualified local technician out there right away.
The Tech Prep Kit. If you do decide your machine is in the worth fixing window, here is exactly how you need to prepare before calling a local San Diego repair network.
Being prepared doesn't just save the technician time, it saves you money and ensures you get an accurate, honest quote right out of the gate. Just having the brand name isn't enough to quote parts. First, get that exact model and serial number. 2 dishwashers from the exact same manufacturer can use entirely different internal parts depending on the specific model year. Step 2, have your symptom notes ready. Saying it's not cleaning well is a very different diagnostic path than saying it fills up but won't drain. Tell them exactly what happens, when it happens, and if it's consistent or intermittent. And step 3, gather your prior service history. This ensures your technician can confirm parts availability and arrive fully prepared to fix it.
As that previous step really emphasizes, your service history is truly one of the biggest factors in an honest recommendation. A machine that's never been touched in its life is a vastly different diagnostic case than one that just had its drain pump and control board completely replaced last year. If a technician knows exactly what has already been replaced and when, they can give you a real contextual recommendation instead of just a generic rule of thumb. It prevents them from chasing their tail, and more importantly, it helps them tell you honestly if the machine is just becoming a massive money pit.
So bringing all of our data together, this final decision matrix gives you a really clear no-fluff guide on whether to book a repair or start shopping for a new installation. If your unit is under 10 years old and has a single part failure, like a bad latch or a busted pump, the math heavily favors a repair. It just makes sense. But if your machine is over 12 years old and is showing a pattern of multiple unrelated failures, or if you happen to discover a cracked tub or a major mystery leak, the math strongly favors replacement. Adding diagnostic fees and labor onto parts costs for an aging, unsupported machine simply isn't a smart investment. Look at your machine's age, its symptoms, and its history. Let that track record empower you to make the absolute smartest financial decision for your home today. There really is no substitute for a hands-on look from a qualified local technician when you're truly stuck, but by using this framework, you are no longer just guessing in the dark. So the next time you hear a strange hum or see a weird puddle forming on your kitchen floor, ask yourself, are you just going to cross your fingers and hit restart, hoping for the best? Or are you going to use these 3 pillars to finally take control of the situation? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. We'll see you next time.